Without further ado, I want to introduce tonight's speakers. Vienne is joining us here from Houston, thank goodness, and we have Steward Johnson who's going to come up here and narrate the discussion. So I'm going to hand it off to these two guys. So without further ado, let me call you guys up to the stage. Let's give them a warm round of applause. Thanks, man. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
My name is Steward Johnson. For those who don't know, I am a founding member. Right? Is that right? Yeah, founding member at MeetPerry. I am a Nashville-based healthcare technology investor and entrepreneur, and I have the great pleasure of being here with Vian tonight. Thank you for coming up from Houston. Before we dive in and talk about a largely unmet need in preventive health, which I'm excited to dive deeper today, I have a question for the audience. I like doing these. Who feels that they learned by a show of hands, okay? Who feel that they learned everything that they needed to know about sexual health and emotional wellness during their time in high school? Of course, Matt Davis, yeah. You're a stud, we know. But that's pretty much what I expected. And so that's why it's terrific that we're here with Vian, and we get to hear your story and learn about what you're building at Taboos, and we're all going to be better off for it, and certainly our kids are as well. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So I got my hymn sheet here. So from your 20 years of being an OBGYN, what reoccurring problem pushed you to found Taboos, and what insight made you switch from your full-time clinician role to a builder?
Thank you so much, Stewart. Well, it was a moment 2 years ago, and I know this will sound strange, and I actually have not said this out loud before, but there was a moment 2 years ago where I was seeing patients and working, in the regular day-to-day routine, that I felt like I was actually being a fake doctor. And the reason why I say that is, I have the degree, I had the white coat, I had the 15 plus years of experience, but it felt like Groundhog Day every day. I was treating the same conditions that I treated when I first graduated med school. And there's just something not right about that. And we know healthcare has a lot of opportunity, but I think the piece that really got to me was that our system is not designed to help patients advocate for themselves. And at the time, I was the chief medical officer of the largest federally qualified health center in Texas, and I was overseeing 400 clinicians. So you would think that I would have felt empowered to do something. But if I realized that if in that position, I felt like I still couldn't move the needle, then it was time for me to step away and create a new game to play in. And that's when I left. And so that's been about a year and a half, where I've spent the last year and a half speaking to teens and young adults. And what I've learned is that prevention to them looks very different. It's not the annual wellness visits. And in fact, it's not really the wearables for them, at least right now. Like in this phase of their life, prevention looks like having access to non-judgmental information and a way in which they can connect their life skills to the health decisions that they make. And so when they say, I feel like I'm not enough, they say, I don't feel comfortable speaking to people, in real life off my phones, it's a translation of a lack of life skills that are impacting their health. And that's really how Taboos was formed. And it's, a platform where we're delivering life skills that impact their health decisions, and being able to see the changes that even these small interventions in their daily lives, increase their confidence, help them speak, articulate what they're thinking, has changed the way I feel about being a physician.
So walk us through a typical experience that a young adult or a teen may interact with Taboos, and a practical skill that they may learn that they can then apply into the real world.
Yeah, so a typical experience for someone on using the platform is that we want them to get the most impact, but for the shortest amount of time, because we actually want them to get off their phones and go use those life skills in real life. And so that would look like 3 to 5 minutes a day, a few days a week. And during that short time, they're learning a life skill and how to apply it to a realistic situation that a teen and a young adult may experience. Now, if we're successful there, that's when we start gaining their trust and they start sharing personal health questions that they may not be asking, but they may be searching on TikTok for or asking ChatGPT. And we get those questions, and those questions range from acne, painful periods, to eating disorders, to porn addiction. And the last step is if we can get them to share those types of questions that they have or concerns they have, can we connect them to vetted resources and actual clinical visits? And so, one example, we have a lot of different modules, but one that comes that seems to be resonate with them a lot is in our communication module, and it's 5 different ways to say no. And I think a lot of times they feel very relieved to know that there is more than one way to say no, and that saying no doesn't mean that you have to be mean or that you are, hurting someone's feelings, because that's, number one reason why they seem to have challenges saying no. And so we go through that, what are different ways to say no? When you say no, you can, share an appreciation and then say no. You can offer an alternative. You can blame something else. You can make it funny. And so we've had, something as trivial as a 16-year-old told me that his friend asks to use his calculator every day at school, even though he needs it. But he continues to give it to his friend, and he doesn't have a calculator. I know it sounds so trivial, but he was able to then come up with an alternative and say, hey, today I actually need it. Do you mind asking the teacher if they have an extra one? And for him, it was like such a relief, right? So it can be something like that, or it can be something like in a relationship where you feel like it's moving too fast. What are the different ways you can say no so that you don't feel like you're risking that he's going to break up with you?
Yeah, that's so important. So how do you think about using large language models, assuming, that the best source for education on sexual health and emotional wellness is not from Sam Altman and ChatGPT? So what guardrails are essential for safe, effective use?
Well, that's such an interesting question, because I would say if it wasn't for LLMs and kind of all the AI advances, I'm not sure I would have had the courage to do what I'm doing today, because I know any business has to be sustainable. And that the AI piece of that really helps to increase the efficiency and ability to scale. And on the flip side of that, I would say the detriments of AI that we're seeing in the news today around teens using ChatGPT to help plan their suicide and those types of things is also a reason why there's urgency around what I'm doing. And I feel like if the tech companies aren't going to care about the well-being of our kids, then we need to be able to empower them with some type of life skills and information on how to navigate the technology. If you were to just Google in the last year, there are 3 cases where the families are suing the AI companies for, their own children who have committed suicide using, AI to help. And of course, that's multi-layered and lots of different reasons, but we know that our children cannot coexist with this technology without some type of guardrails. And so for us, it has to be human first and AI assisted at this point. It may be different in a few years, but right now, the companies that are going AI only, that loss of human connection is to me is not a positive path forward. So it has to be human first, it has to be ethical, and it has to be transparent.
So let's talk about the company and how you're growing it. So who pays today? How do, like, if we had children who wanted to get on the platform, like how does that work?
Yeah, so when I first started it, we did more one-on-one, and so families would pay for their child to get coached on the life skills. But I've always felt that I was going to move away from that model and do more of a group and community setting. But I did use those 6 months to really understand what this generation wants, what type of content, what type of approach that they want. And then we moved over to more community group settings. And so I have pilots with a university in Houston and a teen clinic there, so that the community is forming and they are able to see other people's responses. And I think that's been very helpful for the users to see that they're not alone, to see how other people approach the discussion questions. And so at this point, we are hoping that Taboos will be seen as really like an operating system for companies and schools who want to prioritize well-being. And there's so much talk about well-being after COVID. But I think this is one of the tools that can get you there, because if you're worried about your employees and your students of that community, understanding what their emotional and physical health is, and understanding that they're actually inseparable, and that they understand that unfortunately our healthcare system sees them as separate even still today, that there are other ways that we have to work around our healthcare system to make sure that they are emotionally and physically well.
So what does Taboos look like at scale? So these pilots go fantastic. You're growing across the United States. Are we interacting through an app? Is it a widget on ChatGPT? Like what's the at scale? What's the mode of interaction?
So at scale, it would be an app that's affiliated with that organization, and so there would be a private group for that particular organization, and then there would be some customization depending on what type of life skills that's most beneficial for that business. But ultimately, it would be AI empowered, using all of the information that we've collected over the last year and a half. But there will always be a human touch, and so we have some coaches that are being trained, and that touch point, what we've learned, actually only needs to be 15-20 minutes once a week. And outside of that, it can be the discussions that are running the community. And so given that model, we can scale pretty easily with coaches overseeing multiple communities. I think the important part is that the community, for example, at the school, the community, they know it's their peers, but it's purposefully done where they don't know who it is, right? So they use a different display name. But it really brings value to them to know that their classmate in their class is going through the same thing that they're going through, but they don't need to know who it is.
Yeah, that's really important. All right, so got some quick hitters for you, and then we'll get into Q&A. What is one health or life skill myth that you would delete today from TikTok or social media?
That you have to look a certain way to be successful and to be healthy. And I think that's not completely new. I think our generation probably grew up with that too. But the difference is that when I was growing up, I might have been faced with, questioning my self-image or self-worth once a month when my 17 magazine came in. Or, if you go over to your aunt's house and they're like, oh, did you gain weight? But when you talk to the 24-year-olds that I talk to now, they say that can happen like 30, 40, 50 times a day when they're scrolling. And so that's the biggest difference. And that myth, we would be so much better off if we didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah. So if every young adult or teen mastered one single skill that you are teaching, what skill would that be that moves the needle the most to get the outcomes they're desired?
And the biggest theme I've seen in my teaching is teaching them to know what to say when they want to say it. And again, very simple, but I've seen, from a 17-year-old wanting to share with his parents his true identity, not being able to say it, and practicing it, and then being able to say it a few months later, and seeing his confidence, rise to where he is, running for class president and getting it. And it just changes, right? Being able to articulate what you want, it can really give you a lot of agency. And I've seen these kids gain agency and then feel like they're invincible and are okay to try things that they never would have tried.
So this is, always is a touchy topic, and so I'm sure you're constantly dealing with diverse religious, political, cultural barriers as you're building this company. How are you navigating those, and what's your approach to kind of staying with the facts and making sure the right information is given the right time to the right people?
Yeah. So the first thing is I stopped saying that I'm working on sexual health. Like, I don't do that. I don't say that anymore. I just spoke with a private school last week. I really focus on the life skills, because at the end of it, that's the foundation. And then the scenarios that we use is what we end up customizing and personalizing depending on the culture and community. and we can navigate that because it's private groups. And so depending on the age group, depending on the community, they're only invited into that particular group. And that's how we've navigated it so far. In terms of accuracy, we have advisors. I have a lot of clinician friends who have volunteered their time to help navigate some of the more sensitive topics.
Well, I hope you're wildly successful. I mean, this is fantastic. I'm going to move into Q&A here. Any questions from the crowd?
Yeah. So right now we moved from B to C, so families paying for subscription, to the institutions, the organizations. So like the university that I'm working with, they pay for a licensing fee. And so right now we've capped it, like say at 100 students, for example. And so we're working through that with different organizations. So we have a, sorry. So we have a tiered approach right now. And so far we're in the early stages. So our fees are really based on the pilot. So for example, the University of Houston, we are doing a 6-month pilot, and that's $5,000 for the licensing fee of 100 to 150 students. And so as as it tiers up, the price will change accordingly. So right now it's a web app, but early first quarter of next year will be iPhone and Android. Thank you.
Who else?
DJ. Has there been one? Congrats on that event. Has there been something that has surprised you that I didn't even think the kids were thinking that?
Yes.
We're like, oh my gosh.
Yes, multiple things, but I would say the one that really should get as much attention as possible is the 22-year-old, guys telling me that they're having erectile dysfunction. And as we dig into that, it's, across the board, it's a porn addiction problem. And many of them tell me that they want to stop, but they don't feel comfortable sharing that with their friends and family. And so trying to find resources for them has been really the only thing I can do, but also sharing and trying to create support around that for them. But I think that's been surprising. The other piece is around in college, the types of activities that they're engaging in. One that's really gotten a lot of headline is around strangulation during intimacy. And again, that I hear from the guys that they actually don't want to do it. They feel like they're supposed to, or they have to because of the TikTok or whatever they're seeing. And so, I think those are some of the things that have come up this year. So when they join the private group, they have the option of sharing it within the group, or they can DM me separately. So some of those have come through DM, but some actually have just shared it within the group. So you can do either one. I would love for schools and organizations to see Taboos as a way to, like I said, it's like an operating system, right? Like it's a system that works with everything else in the organization to help keep their community well. So whether it's your students or your employees, being able to change the way they connect with health and not see health as the time that you scheduled your doctor's appointment and you go into that exam. And when you leave, then that's done. What these teens and young adults have taught me is that health is actually in the everyday moments and the decisions that they make when they scroll and the decisions that they make when they say yes, but they really want to say no. And so that to me would be success if we can just get some of the organizations to really prioritize the well-being of the people that work for them.
Chris.
Do you need to build in any sort of the off-ramp where this discussion turns into we need to get you referred back to a clinic and do it?
Mm-hmm.
Versus clinical, whatever. Do you audit
It's definitely it's a need, and right now it's manual. The University of Houston, I work with a student health center, and so that's where the play actually works really well. And so when I find that the conversation is that they need some type of testing, I route them into the health center, and I see patients there 1 day a week, and so that helps that work. And then the new pilot we have with the teen clinic would, would hypothetically work the same way, is to route them back into care. Well, so far, at least with the U of H pilot, so I play my part in terms of getting them resources. And then the sororities and fraternities on campus are always looking for education pieces to do with the Student Health Center. And so that's actually one of the topics. The strangulation and the porn addiction is something that they're wanting to do events around. And so I think part of it is finding other resources to help with the education and advocacy, along with connecting them to resources. TJ, one more thing that really surprised me, actually, is the number of students that come to see me at the health center and how many of them don't want to use their parents' insurance. I mean, I knew that would happen, but the fact that it takes up most of my day, it's really challenging. And because they don't want their parents to see what we're billing for. So STD testing or getting on birth control. And so though they have insurance, I actually spend a lot of time looking for local free testing clinics and Walmart, $10 generic birth control pills if that's what they're looking for. Yes, I know.
I was saying it's so admirable that you are building something from a place of service and passion. It really shows. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, what's something that people in this room can help you by doing?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I mean, we always looking for funding to help, with developing the app, and then pilots. Any organizations that might want to test this out with their employees. Right now, we have two clinics, and so I'm trying to get into a school, and then just wanting to test like in a company, an organization. What does that look like? To really understand, does this really fit the need for every kind of in my mind of what this particular generation needs and wants.
I would imagine that a lot of these young adults have distrust or maybe not distrust, but concern with going through these types of scenarios that are sponsored by institutions. And do you find that you have a hard time with them interacting, or are you just getting the students that are willing to kind of talk, and there's a whole other sea of students out there that just aren't engaging because it's a university sponsored and they're afraid the university's going to find out, or the organization's going to find out, or there's negative consequences to that? How do you kind of break through that and get to the people that aren't willing to just raise their hand and talk, but really do need
The help.
probably need it more than people that are willing to raise their hand, probably they've already made that step?
Yeah. So far, because they can be anonymous and they choose their own display name, that hasn't, at least for the ones who have joined. So of course, what you're saying is, what about the people who haven't joined? For me right now, I do believe it's more of a distribution, working with the different clubs and things at U of H to help push out the information and joining. But I found that they're actually quite open. And a lot of it has to do with being able to be anonymous.
Travis?
So going back to your prior life, you mentioned that we can only see things on the ground update. What do you think needs to change? Obviously, women's health is really out there now.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think needs to change when it getting specific to women's health? What needs to shift? How can we be better for better? What do you see in that space that's maybe emerging that you're excited about?
Do you mean specifically for women's health or just? Oh gosh, there's a lot of great things. I mean, I'm sure you all have you heard the rising interest in being able to help women go through menopause. I mean, that's still, even though it's been a popular topic, is not really been successfully taken care of, right? So that teen pregnancies is always something that for me it's so preventable, and so really digging into like why we can't seem to curb that. And I'll just put a plug in for research for women's health. And we know that's like less than 5% of everything that's being spent on research funding. And so I think there's lots of opportunities for sure.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Yeah. I think a very fair question. And because I had different phases of my life where I went from private practice into leadership and then into this, I can confidently say it's the healthcare system overall. When I was a CMO, we had to do a lot of like clinician well-being, and so I had to spend a lot of time with the clinicians. And it really is upstream all the time. It's the 7-minute visit. It's the fighting with the insurances. It's trying to do what's best for your patient, but sometimes something is easier, and maybe you end up doing that. And so it's very conflicting, and I think it's very hard to navigate the system, even more so now. And I think that really pushes people to feel the burnout because you're doing something but you don't feel like you're effective at it. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Mhm. Thank you.
Probably time for one more. TJ, you've asked too many questions already. Okay.
From your role, I guess I'm interested in, from what all you've seen, do you have a recommendation for social media?
Yes.
As like parents of like all sorts of age groups, like what do you say?
Yes. Well, first I'll say I have a 17-year-old and I have a 7-year-old. The 7-year-old's here with me today.
Woo!
We made some mistakes with that 17-year-old. I feel like that age group, the iPhone was coming out, everyone got one, like it was cool. And parents were really left with a lot of, not a lot of guardrails and advice. And so if anyone has gone through that and made mistakes, please know that we've been there too. But we're learning from those mistakes. And so the 7-year-old back here will not be getting an iPhone anytime soon. And in fact, I've learned a lot more about other types of phones. And so when they say, oh, well, I'm walking home from school, I need to feel safe. Okay, well, then there's lots of other phones, not just the flip phone, though that is one, but there's so many more now that have been made to help address this problem. And I would highly recommend, if you can do it, to do it. Now, social media, in the UK, they've banned it so after 16. And the US will probably never have anything like that because of the way we are, and that's fine. But then it can become just a family choice. Like, what are you going to choose? And, we talked about this, find your tribe of people that will help support that, because it's not helpful for your kid to not have social media, but then his best friend does. And 100% that they will be talking about whatever he saw, on TikTok. And so finding your tribe and creating those community rules together to help support and fight, the system that is extremely addictive. No, I don't think so. I think that the answer is taboos, so that they can learn the life skills, so that when they get the social media, they have enough, information to make decisions, to understand that people create images and they're fake. And so just really empowering them to take control of their health and not be a victim of the social media.
Well, thank you. This was incredible, and I think we all learned a lot. And please give a round of applause for Beyond.
Thank you very much.